And she's like, I don't know what that means. Like, I know. And you probably don't.
You know, just smile and say,
Yeah,
good
just
job, babe.
on the head. Like, I'm just.
That's good, babe.
Tell me you're proud of me.
Oh shit, that's funny.
Because I'm physical touch and a words of affirmation guy. So pat me on the head and say good job, and I'll follow you forever.
Yep.
Just like a dog. All right. I think this will be fun, short, sweet.
Yeah.
This is your fan service.
I think it's funny that you turned it into that.
I went to chat. I was like, dude, let's see it. Let's see what happens.
I think it's not because I was like, I think they should have done, huh?
We'll talk about it now.
I know. That's fine. Go. Just hit the go button.
Just
hit the go button.
All right. 3, 2, 1. To get with the programming, I'm Chase Ingram.
I'm Captain America.
And along with me is Bill Grundler.
Wolverine.
And we have a very special fan service episode because I feel like this centers around one of our hosts. We did a recap of 2020 Stage 1 CrossFit Games. If you guys haven't listened to it, that's our latest episode on our fan service. We recapped the weekend. We analyzed the programming. We went all over the place and all over this. More importantly, we had a really good time, and we feel like everyone else is pretty much enjoying it. It's one of our fastest growing episodes we have done to date. So thank you guys out there for listening. If you guys do want to support the show before we get into it, you can go to patreon.com/getwiththeprogramming. And for $6 a month, you can help support the show, allow us to give you guys more content, better content, more stuff. And allow us to just do more things for you. So go to patreon.com. We already have 20. Bill, we have 20.
Woo! That army is growing.
Growing.
I love that. And thank you very much, you guys. Seriously. Like, that's pretty cool. That's really pretty cool. I don't even we did that. We're like, hey, when you did the Patreon thing, you're like, hey man, I signed us up for that. And I was like,
no shot.
Are people really going to I'm just happy that they're listening to us right now, but man, that really opens up the door for us to be able to do some cool things. So
that is a good
really
point.
Cool. I appreciate it, you guys. Thanks.
We appreciate you guys listening to us. Obviously, first and foremost, thank you for that. Thank you for following us on social media. We're on Instagram at getwith_the programming. We're on YouTube. We put these shows out live because me and Bill are videoing and talking to each other.
We are doing that now.
In California, and I'm in Texas. Our YouTube channel is Get With The Programming Podcast. But again, thank you guys for supporting us on Patreon. If you do want to join, $6 a month to support the show, go to patreon.com/getwiththeprogramming. I just say we're at 20. When we get to 50, we'll pick a programming patron of the week.
Yeah.
Give you a full month of programming from Bill and I for you as a thank you for supporting the show. And for those in support of the show, we do have are you bubbing?
Dude, I'm always bubbing. Are you kidding me right here? I got the bubs in. Bubs is in.
I think the last time we talked, I didn't have any morning coffee, so I had to wait on the bubs, but I
poor guy
fixed that problem. And let me just walk through my bubbing routine in the morning. Then maybe on the next show, I would like to hear your routine. Because
sure.
I coach the 5 a.m. class at my affiliate here in Dallas 3 times a week on average. I get up at 4:15. I already have the coffee preset it in the morning. I wake up, I take a shower, brush my teeth, go downstairs, and then this wave of a coffee aroma hits my nostrils, and I'm less angry than I was prior to that happening. Pour a cup of coffee, head to the gym, and then I get into my office. I think I can get to the gym about 4:45, and I just sit at my desk in the dark. I think I have one light on, and I go to my bubs. I put in my MCT oil powder. I put in my collagen protein, and I get my little spinny whisk, and I just sit there in the darkness with the scent of coffee and the sound of goodness that is coming my way. And that is how I bub.
Whoa. Like, super cool on the bubs, obviously. That's a unique way of doing it for sure. But I have to go back. You pour your coffee.
Yes.
And it sits in your cup.
Yeah, but
as you drive thermos or not, you drive.
Thermos? It's a Yeti.
Okay, you're Yeti. Okay, whichever.
It stays hot as F. Trust me, I've tried this the wrong way too soon, and I lose 0 temperature between my house and the gym. It's like 15 minutes max.
I know, but like that's the whole thing is you pour your coffee, you get that smell immediately to your face. And that first sip, just the first, it doesn't have to be a big one, just the first sip. I'm surprised. I couldn't wait. I'd be like, here we go. That's my 30 seconds of like, moment, just standing there. Not even at the office yet. Like the office routine is cool. Like I like that. That's ease into the morning class. That's cool. I like that. But I would have to have my 30 seconds of the first drink.
It's too hot for me.
Big baby.
I just sit there and smell it.
Maybe I've burned off all my temperature buds in my mouth. Maybe that's what it is.
My tongue with the amount of coffee intake yet. I mean, talk to me when I get 50, and I'll probably just drink it right out of the pot.
Just drink it. Don't be a baby.
Underneath the spout as it's coming out.
I'm bad. I'm not that bad, but I'm pretty bad.
So that is my morning bub routine. If you guys want to hear Bill's, we'll do your.
I'll do mine next time. But
if you guys want to bub with us, go to bubnaturals.com. Enter the code GETWITH20 for 20% off and join the bub train because it is hot and delicious. So thank you, Bub, partner of the show. But let's get to our fan service. In this episode, like most fan services, they happen naturally. They either come from our fans or it's a discussion that we had in maybe a previous episode that we wanted to spend more time answering. And I think a big thing with the programming this weekend with the 3 single modality tests, skills, we'll just say tests for now. You can call them skills tests if you like.
You're already dipping your toe into that, aren't you?
Test. Anyway, so one thing that I know we talked about, and you specifically, is that you would have liked to seen these skills counted for 50 points as opposed to 100. So before we get into, and so what we wanted to do is we went to our stat man, our stat magician, our stat superhero, Chad Schroeder, the stat beard and Vibram man himself.
The Vibram champion.
I texted, I didn't even text you with the group. I went behind Bill's back. And
I know, jerk.
Bill's being a real D-bag about this point system. I'm just kidding.
Dude, I almost was like surprised when you did the whole startup, when you did your name, I'm Chase Ingram, Captain. I thought it was going to be an end with me as Bill Grendler, Mr. Grumpy Pants. I thought that you're going to change my whole intro.
Bill, Mr. Grumpfish.
Mr. Grumpy Pants.
My son watches this show called Bubble Guppies.
Yeah.
This big grumpy fish called Mr. Grumpfish. And I feel like that was Bill when he was talking about these. Anyway, so I went to Chad. I was like, hey, Bill brought up this cool point, and I want to see how it shakes the leaderboard up, is take the single modality tests and only make them 50 points, and let's rescore it. And let's see what happened. If there were changes, were not changes. So that's what we're going to go into. But before we start, we had another good question from one of our followers. I should do them a favor because it was a good question. Go through why, and I'll let you have the floor, Bill, is sure. Why did you want the skills test only to count 50 versus the 100 points like the classic events were?
Okay. So I really, during the discussion, it wasn't that first off, I have to say, I was not upset at all by any means with what the games were, the events that were there. Even with the handstand hold, I wasn't upset with any of the pieces. When we talk our program, it is armchair quarterbacking what we feel it does and how it looks and all that type of stuff. So I'm not upset with what it was. I am 100% that any test is basically fair because everyone that's competing all has to deal with the same rules. So it's a fair deal. That being said, I feel starting off with the handstand hold, to me, even though that was, you can say it was an elevated version of like handstand walking because that's a controlled fall. This is, you have to have a little more stability and balance, and it's more specific, definitely. I feel that currently that is a skill that isn't necessarily a race, even though every single thing you do would be, if it's a race of some sort, you can consider an event. So we've done things like this in the past. I mean, if you look at it, it's the same type of deal of saying, okay, we're not going to do a handstand walk where you can see who go the furthest, because that has the view of like it's a race, even though the first time we did that, that was only worth 50 points. But we did do L-sits, and holding L-sit for the longest amount of time. And you had one shot on that, and that was also worth 50 points. Then we did, you can go all the way to the softball throw. That was 50 points. We did a broad jump. That was 50 points. And it just seemed to me that this particular event lended itself to that realm. Now, if we look at all of them, and we got into this discussion. Yeah, we
scored similarly.
Right. So as you were setting me up for this the other day when we were texting about it, and you're like, bro, you got to watch out for semantics, because I was like, is it an event? Is it a skill? How do you call it? And which is very true. I agreed with that. That's why I think defining the pieces is important, even though it really hasn't been done. Very similar to like, how do we say who the fittest is? Well, we can say who the fittest is because we have a definition of what fitness is, and that's how we find out who is number one in that definition. That's where we go. So, is a handstand hold, does it work to be the fittest? Should it be a test to find the fittest? Well, sure. In our models of fitness, you should be able to pull that out of the hopper and be able to do well at it. We said that any task, whether it's career, sport, or life related, should be able to be pulled out and be able to do that. And I agree with that. And that's where it kind of walks that line is does it work? But to me, it would have been the same thing to say, okay, well, we've done a softball throw before. Why don't we say you now have to take your opposite hand and softball throw, and we're going to use that as an event. It's like you can't say that doesn't work either. You can't say that, well, like, all right, we're going to throw darts in there, and then whoever's the best dart thrower, that's going to be an event, and that scores into whatever. So to me, and again, like, I know that it's going into kind of obscurity a little bit, but if you don't draw the line, then the line is never drawn, and you kind of sit in that gray area. That's where I kind of felt with that particular event. The problem is that I could almost lay that same argument on all three of the single modality parts. And it's really hard for me to say, well, okay, if you're going to go for a 1 rep max, is that an event or is that a skill? Because it's very niche. And I don't really know the answer to that. Like that right there, that will be a 5-hour talk.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't want to get into that necessarily, but I think that it was interesting seeing that there was an effect on the leaderboard, not a drastic effect, but an effect of changing that scoring just a little bit. And that's one of the things and I think it really fits into our program, our discussion, our analyzing the program, because one of the quote unquote events that we always end our shows with is let's look at the scoring. You have your scoring that they used here. We have your event scoring overall, your event average. And then, what if we adjusted the point totals this way or that way? It doesn't change anything. And I think that in this particular event, I think it does that, at least on the guy's side, which is interesting. So I'm really glad Chad was able to go back and look at that, because it's an interesting talking point. I think that it is. And, we've had the games where we've had skill events, and skill events have always, at least in the past, been worth 50 points. Again, where you decide where this event versus skill part is difficult. And that would be, like I said, that's a whole nother deal, but that was kind of where it was.
Okay. And I just wanted to kind of lay out the foundation of the lens at which we're viewing these events as.
And again, this is not taking anything away from what everyone did. Like, and we always say that. Like we've seen in the past where people have been knocked off or put into the podium spot based on whatever score anything we look at. So we don't want to take anything away from anybody because they did their job based on the rules that were given to them. So I mean that's sport. Play within the rules. We just are adjusting the rules in the what if land right now.
We're playing the what if game. We're not playing the this how it should have been game.
Totally.
We're doing this for fun because you weren't the only person that asked this question, right? And asking the question is not saying this is the way it should have been. It's like, I'm just curious. And we
totally.
So we weren't the only ones, and we know we have a lot of people out there, and that was the question that we're going to answer. So let's look at this. And so here's the concept. We changed nothing about the programming. The 4, I would say, classic CrossFit events, we're going to keep at the 100-point system.
Right.
And the system they used was the 2019 30-person system. So you start with 100 points, drop 4 points from there all the way down to 13th place. So 100, 96, 92. And then at 14, you drop by 3. So at 14th place is worth 49 points. 30th, you get 1. So that's how the system works. And the way this point system works is that it rewards you for having good performances, right? You get almost a bonus for getting somewhere in the top 3.
Yeah.
And the point differential doesn't change. Usually the point system would change about 6 or 7. So it's even more beneficial to get a good score, but that's the system we're working with. And what we did on the 50-point event is we just cut that number in half from the 100s, right? So instead of dropping 4, you drop 2, and that's what we got. So whatever points they got, Chad just divided by 2.
Right.
Very straightforward. So you're going to get some half points in there because, half of 1 is 1/2. So we wanted to make it as straightforward as possible. So this is how we're going to look at it. We're going to see how things shook out and how they changed. So we'll start with the women's side. And what this did is that when you drop it down to 50, it made the impact of a good or bad placing finish less.
Right.
So say if you did really, really well, that actually jumped people up really high on the leaderboard. Whereas if you did really, really bad, you didn't fall back as much because there's only half the gain or half the loss. Interesting enough, so your top 5 prior to the scoring change that we used was Tia, Brooke, Haley, Katrin, Kari. Second place was KRISTIN, just 2 points back, and then I believe it was Amanda Barnhart.
On the original?
On the original.
Yeah.
5 points back, and then Cara Saunders 7 points back.
Yeah.
All right, so here is what changed when you made the 50-point for the skills tests or single modality tests. Top 5, no change. Not even placing, not even order. So there's no point different. I mean, there's some point changes because we have half the points we're working with, but in terms of placing, same order. Tia, Brooke, Haley, Katrin, Kari. Doesn't change. Their positions never changed at all. 6th place is still Kristen Holte, but instead of 2 points behind, she's actually 3.5 points behind. So her distance apart increased. Here's where it got interesting is that Cara Saunders moved up a spot into 7th, but her point differential between 5th and 7th grew to 14, where it was 7. And that's a product of her front squat.
Right.
She had such a great, I think did she get 2nd or 3rd?
3rd on the front squat. Yeah. 3rd. Yep.
So Cara moved up 1. KRISTI ERAMO moved up 1. So KRISTI jumped up to 8th, where she was, I believe, 9th. And Barnhart is now 9th. And then Caroline REASON-THIBAULT is in 10th. So the only changes were in those bottom 6 through 10. Now, there was a lot more changes below. Like, for example, those that really did well in the skills, for example, Danny Spiegel.
Danny Spiegel, yeah.
Right? So she had a great front squat, and she has a good handstand. She dropped 6th places on the leaderboard. Whereas those that got hurt, the biggest one I see is actually Emma McQuaid. She jumped 6 places on the leaderboard. Now, she was still in 13th and not in contention whatsoever for the top 5. But just to show you, is like it does make a difference. However, in this setting, nothing changed on the women's side. And someone is like, oh, well, that's boring. It's like, it's sort of, yes, nothing changed if you wanted to see drama. But in terms of, I would say, legitimizing your top 5, regardless of what their point scale was, it's still the same.
It's almost, at least what it does, I think, on the women's side is it, just like we said, it legitimizes it. It shows exactly, it doesn't really matter how you skew the test.
Right.
That the same people made it through the test. And that's one of the things we were talking about before. Like, does the test find the top 5 people, or are the top 5 people going to get through no matter what the test is? Right. Which I think is really interesting on this one for the ladies.
I think when we look at the test, we want to see an overall fittest test.
Right.
I know you said is like, look, I just want to find the winner. You said that before. Is like, I do like, this is your legit 1 through 30. I think sometimes it's like, if you just like, yeah, Tia Matt still won, so it's a great test. I'm like, well.
No, exactly. And that's hard to say. You're right. You're right.
Weird give and take, right?
Right.
So okay, so that's the women's side. I didn't spend too much time here because on the men's side, we do have some changes. So your 5 coming in prior to us resetting the scores was Matt, Noah, Justin Medeiros, Samuel KWANT, and Jeffrey Adler. That was your 1st through 5th.
Yep.
Chandler Smith was 2 points out of 5th and 6th. And then I want to say it was
Jonne.
Oh, yeah, Jonne Koski, and then BKG.
Yeah.
And Pat VELLNER.
Yep.
And then Samuel. Is it Cornier or
Cornier?
Cornier.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I say that right. Okay. So, on the men's side, your top, I would say there is one change. So, it's your top 3 stay the same. It's Matt Fraser, Noah Olson, Justin Medeiros. Jeffrey Adler bumps up to 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Adler bumps up to 4th. He was 5th. Chandler Smith goes from 6th to 5th. But behind him is not KWANT. It's actually Samuel Cornier. Bjorgvin Carl Goodmanson, and then.
Yeah, so there's a big swap between the two. Oh, geez, wow, they're both Samuel. Oh my gosh, I just noticed that now. Between Cornier and KWANT, they flip-flop. Cornier goes up 4, yep. KWANT goes down 4.
Yeah, so KWANT went from 4th to 8th.
Yeah.
In this scoring system change, just making those single modality events worth half as much.
Yeah.
Chandler Smith makes it. Now just, let's see, 4.5 points over Samuel Cornier. Yeah. Bjorgvin Carl moves up a spot. Koski drops 2. VELLNER drops 1. HEPPNER moves up 1. The biggest changes we saw on the men's side was for sure the KWANT and Cornier. But even lower, Scott Tetlow jumps up 4. Jay Crouch jumps up 4. Tim Paulson drops 5.
Yeah.
And if you think about those single modality movements, you think about a front squat, row, and a handstand hold. He's actually good at all 3 of those.
Yeah. That's why it shows that he's dropping on that, because of the points on that.
But from 23rd down to 30th, absolutely no change. There's no movement there. The only major movement is in the middle.
Right.
And it was surprising to see KWANT drop so far. Just from a curiosity standpoint, obviously we are not saying this is what should have been. We're just
no. But what this does show to me is what if you look at the broad spectrum of all the athletes, what it shows is your top athletes, the holes that they have, meaning whatever gets tossed in their direction, is not like they really don't have any holes. They are good at everything. Then you have your athletes at the bottom. They aren't as good at everything compared to those top guys. And then in the middle, That's the ones that like they're really good at some things and not as good at. So what this does by doing this is it highlighted where the weaknesses are. I mean, it would almost be if we had an even number of the single modalities as we did events. It would be almost interesting to go, okay, let's keep the single modalities at 100. Let's make the CrossFit workouts at 50 to see if what the whole does there. But I think that's what when I look at these numbers, that's what it's showing me is the test is showing your best athletes, and this is what we would expect are the holes that they have are so non-existent that it doesn't matter what the event, it doesn't matter what the scoring system, it doesn't matter what you place in front, they're going to do really well. And then the athletes, and even like, you know, if you look at Noah Olson, like he was second, he did spectacular. But if you look at how he scored, how he placed, he was up and down and up and down. It was just, he was very high on his ups. And then it was able to balance that out on the lower scoring events that he had. So, I mean, I don't know. I geek out on this stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see that. But I think that's a really good way to look at it.
I really like the perspective you put in there because you're exactly right. What I see is this parabolic curve of the question, does programming matter?
Yeah.
Does the programming dictate the outcome? I mean, obviously it's all about the programming, but what I see is very little, if no change in your top percentage of athletes.
Right.
No change in your bottom percent of the athletes. Lots of change in the middle. And so what you see is that the best of the best, it doesn't matter what the programming is. They're just that good.
Yeah.
The worst, not to say the worst of the worst. That's a unfair, right? But your bottom guys, like, look, you're just a bottom guy. Like, it doesn't matter what the programming is. Like, you're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And then the middle guys that is like, I need this to come out so I have a great event, or I got to make sure this doesn't come out so I have a bad event. That's what you do in the middle.
That was Dave's comment. Like, he made that comment, I don't know, maybe it was the 2013 games, 2014 games. He was saying, if you go into the CrossFit Games hoping that something doesn't come out, then you have no chance to do well in the CrossFit Games. Mm-hmm. Because then you have a weakness. You know that there's a glaring hole that you're, hoping, fingers crossed, all that kind of stuff that like, oh man, please don't be like for me, and you would probably agree with this comment too. If they come up, and they have done this in the games, at least on the Masters side, is they come up with all right, we're going to find a 1 rep max deadlift. It's like, shit.
Yep.
That's the one. That's the one that if they call that out, then it's like damage control, because I know that I'm not going to smash everything now. And that if there is an event that does that, or if you're concerned about any event that gets pulled out, I mean, this is showing it shouldn't matter what the event is. All right, you guys, we're going to see who can balance on the left foot the longest. Okay, bring it.
The other thing that you hope doesn't happen is that it shouldn't matter what the scoring system is either.
Totally.
And I think that was one part of this puzzle that we wanted to fit together, is that we wanted to see if the scoring system would drastically change. Now, it had some changes.
Right.
On the men's side only. We're talking about one person.
Yeah, I mean, there is a change, and I think that that's there. But even...
I think it was going to happen. Like, there's always... Never judge the majority by the outliers.
Right.
Right. And so, yes, was there a switch on the men's side because of the scoring system? Yes. Does that mean it was a bad scoring system and that dictated who went?
No.
We just wanted to see what that would. And on the women's side especially, there was just zero change, zero moving. They had some moving parts on the men's just from 4th through 8th.
Yeah.
On the women's side, basically 1st through 8th, there's no change.
Yeah. And again, like I wasn't looking to see... It wasn't a matter of,
that was a great question.
Okay, did the right people get into the top 5? It wasn't necessarily that question. It was,
right,
should those events be worth as much as a quote unquote classic CrossFit event when we're trying to crown the king and queen CrossFit, not handstand hold, strongman, row champion, like did it still work? And I mean, it still does. I still think I still think that the handstand hold, it's a cool show. It's a cool spectacle. I don't think that is as poignant of a test as the Friendly Fran or the Nasty Nancy or the Damn Diane or the Annie by any means.
Yeah.
Is it legit to put in there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that on the last episode. If you guys want to hear us recap the whole games and look at the programming, we did that. Obviously, I take an opposite stance. Is I'm judging the modalities against each other and just assume that was just a separate part of the test versus those. But again, that's why we.
Well, here's what I want. I want you guys out there in podcast and YouTube land. What are your thoughts about the idea of or what do you think the difference is between a skill versus a test, a skill versus an event? Is a 1 rep max strength, is that an event or is that a skill? Because it's niche. Is a handstand hold or a wall ball toss or a softball throw a skill or is an event? Or should we only be doing, testing wise, should it only be classic Metcon-y type deals? I mean, we can adjust all of that stuff. You can find all those things, but in a different scenario, So I think that's, I want to hear what everyone's thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I think that's when you're starting to get in the weeds of
it's all right.
Semantics.
It's okay. The semantics, you have semantics because you don't have definitions.
True.
That's why you have semantics. That's right. And until definitions are made, then you're right. You're kind of swimming around in the semantic pond.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully you guys can swim nicely like me and Bill can. Eye to eye and a few things on here, and that's okay because it's just opinion. Okay. The last scoring thing we always do, and we've done this with all of our Analyzing the Programming episodes. Again, we've been doing these Analyzing the Programming series dating all the way back to the 2007 CrossFit Games. So if you guys want to catch up on our thoughts and opinions on the programming and the scoring, and if we thought it was a good test, you've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of the CrossFit Games years of our Analyzing the Programming series. At the end, we look at what the scoring system was, and then we go to what our favorite scoring system is, and it's just average finishing place.
Yep.
How good were you against everybody else?
And this is, this is an interesting question, and I'm glad that Chad put this up for us, because one of the arguments, discussion points, comments that I was seeing on social media was talking about how the spread should be based on how much you beat people by.
Oh, yeah.
So, because Matt Fraser just smashed everybody by, a whole minute, that he should get extra points because he did blah, blah, blah and set up that way.
So dominant.
And I mean, it's like, okay, like that's cool, but nowhere in sport do they do a percentage-based win like that. Like when Usain Bolt wins in the 100-meter dash,
right?
He just wins. Like you just get the win. You don't get extra win points. It's like there's no extra credit wins.
It's just straight up Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious. It's like, I don't care if it was an inch or a mile. Winning is winning.
Winning is winning, man. Like that's it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Doesn't matter how it happens. Like a win is a win. And for that win, you get 1 point. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, and that should be it.
As much as I don't like that scoring system, it was that exact scoring system that made me make the CrossFit Games in 2010 because that's
you're welcome.
So is like, nah, that's not really how sports work. It was like, hey, thank you for doing that because some good events. Okay, so the most unbiased way we can look at this is you could do like open style where it's just total place finishing. But what we like to see is what their average finish placing was across the board. So you take all their finishing places, you add them together, and you divide it by 7, and that's the number that you get. And it's even, it's equal. It doesn't weight the events. Right. It weighs your finishing places.
Right.
So we'll start with the men. Matt Fraser's average finish place was 2.5.
So disgusting. That dude is so, like, that is the gnarliest thing I've seen, dude.
This will
Wow.
make you even more upset.
Are you kidding me?
Noah Olson's second place is he averaged 9. Matt averaged 2.5. Noah, who got second, averaged 9th.
Yeah.
Medeiros, 9.143. Samuel Quant, 10.571. Jeffrey Adler, 11.571. And then we had that tight race with Chandler and Koski. Is 0.571 was for Adler, who got 5th. 0.714 was Chandler Smith's. And then Koski was 11.857. So the average finishing place to that point changes absolutely nothing, no matter what point system that they used this past weekend. That's your top 5 based off performance.
Yeah.
There are some, as you go down the line, there are some that are flip-flopped. For example, let me see one. Okay, Cole Sager, who got 20th. It was a 15.571. But really, that should have, if you just ran the numbers lowest to highest, was good for 15th, I want to say. So, whereas like Brent Fikowski, who got 15th, was a 15.857.
Right.
But behind him was 1, 2, 3, 15.71. So that's where it gets a little wonky. All right, so that's the men. So no change. First through 5th, first through 10th, no change whatsoever. That's on the women's side. Tia Claire, 4.143 average finishing place. Brooke Wells, 5.286, so just one behind her.
Mm-hmm.
Those two ran away with it. Haley Adams, 8.714. Katrin Davidsdottir, 9 flat. And then this was the interesting one, and this does have to do with skills, the skills tests, or strength tests, or endurance, whatever you want to say. I like to say single modality.
Single modality. That works best in this one.
Yeah, it's just the single modality tests. I'll say that.
There you go.
Carrie Pierce was 10.428 average finishing place, but Kristen Holte was 10.286. So based off where they finished average against the field, Holte actually had a 0.2 place finishing better than Carrie Pierce, but lost by 2 points.
But then Amanda Barnhart had the exact same placing score as Carrie did, 10.429. So like there is that little jostle there right on the bubble. And
they're all separated by, let's see, the point system they had. Carrie Pierce was 451. Kristen Holte 449, so 2 points. Amanda Barnhart 446.
Yeah.
And then that's 5, and then 2 more points below that is Cara Saunders. So a difference between 7 points between 5th and 8th. But as you said, is that Holte had the better average finishing place at 10.28, and then a tie between Barnhart and Pierce at 10.49. But Cara Saunders was well outside that. Well, I don't say well outside at 10.74. And that was interesting to see.
Yeah.
Again, we're not judging it one way or the other. We're not saying Kristen should have been in the top 5. We're just looking at different scores and systems. And we, again, on the flip side is that on our 50-point single modality test, no change on the women's side, but 1 on the men's. In this average finishing place, no change on the men's side, but 1 on the women's.
Oh, and I hope you athletes out there that were watching this, if you were one of those ones that got bumped, I hope you guys weren't looking at this, and I hope we didn't make you sit there. Or now you're going to be sitting back in your room thinking, damn it, if they would have done this one scoring, I would have made it.
Careful, Bill. You're going to get us in trouble.
I know. Well, who are we talking to? I think weren't we talking to Dan about that? And I said, hey,
yes.
So, we were looking at that, and he's like, oh, I know the numbers. Oh, I looked at all of those.
Oh, what is the one thing I was looking at? Okay, so let's look at, for funsies, with this scoring system, average finishing place, the tie between Pierce and Amanda. The tiebreaker always goes the best finishing place. I'm trying to see who would have won between the two of them. So Pierce had a second, but Barnhart had a second.
Right.
So next best. Pierce had a fourth.
Barnhart. Pierce has it.
Pierce has it, yeah. Barnhart
the fourth.
Okay, so the tiebreaker would go to Kari.
Oh, man, wait. Wow.
Interesting.
And Amanda's next was a fifth. So it's by one place.
Yeah, one place.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's tight.
Yep.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, when it's that tight, when you're on the bubble, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people have to understand, is it doesn't matter where you put the line or how you do that. When you get near that line, it's always going to be dicey. And rarely does it end up being
it's where you put the line, but where you put that is so arbitrary, but somehow, some way, all of this stuff centers around wherever you put that line.
100%. It doesn't matter. If we would have said, okay, 10th place, top 10 go to the games, we would be having this exact same discussion where there's like, well, if you do this, and then this would flip flop, and this point would go here, and that point would go there. Doesn't matter. It's always going to be like that. So, and I think it's important not to make you shouldn't make your scoring system based on that line. It should be like, okay, how does a scoring system play to what you're trying to achieve overall? And ideally, at some point,
yeah,
it would be nice to have a scoring system that is set. I mean, like a soccer goal is 1 point, a field goal is 3 points, a touchdown is 7 points, an extra point is 7, or an extra, 1 point there.
Episode for another time of how many different ones we've had and what has proven to be the most consistent portrayal of your top athletes since then.
Yeah, I think what I think we need to we should bring in. I think on something like that, that's where we see if we can get Chad and Brian Friend to come on here and just number nerd out like crazy with those guys and see what comes up, because that would be interesting.
Chad and Brian, if you're listening, we have an idea for you.
Oh yeah, get those numbers ready, boys.
All right, so before we hop off, I was looking at well, this is getting out of the realm of what we're talking about. I just wrote down the 10 general physical skills, and I was like, what boxes did these skills check off? Do you want to go through that, or just not talk about
sure, go for it.
Okay. Oh, whatever. All right, so those are our rescoring. There's this. And I want to see at least the value of putting these skills in there. So if you look at your 10 general physical skills, when we started this podcast, we analyzed the programming in terms of testing fitness using the models given to us from the level 1 programming lecture and level 1 what is fitness lecture of tests. And the 3 quantifiable tests were a hopper model, which is anything and everything under the sun, either movements or events or tests thrown in there, and it shouldn't matter what comes out. And basically your hopper model now is the number of events or what the events were that came out. Is there a variety of them? The other one is the metabolic pathways. There's 3. There's the short creatine phosphate. There's the anaerobic 0 to 2 minute time frame, and then there's that 20-minute plus aerobic line that just keeps going. And I was looking at, because we kept saying skills, like, well, let's look at the 10 general physical skills, being the 3rd one, and I'll go down the list. This was provided by Dynamax, which created a long time ago. This is one of many. This isn't the only way you should analyze a test, but if we're looking at skills, why not look at what this one is? Cardio, respiratory endurance, stamina, flexibility, strength, speed, power, accuracy, balance, coordination, and agility. So if we go down and look at that, is like what skills did these single modality tests check the box on at least? So front squat, and you let me know if this is inappropriate. I put strength, speed, and power, and flexibility.
I would say strength. I wouldn't say necessarily power, because yeah, I mean, if you look at power meaning force over distance, like, okay, you can say you're moving X amount of weight, so many feet, so you're putting on this many foot-pounds. I mean, like, I can see it being done that way. But I don't see it as like... You have to have the difference between the two. I mean, because what... I don't see this one as you're trying to test power when you're doing that, though. I see it as that you're trying to test strength.
I'm not, yeah.
If you were doing if it was like 3 reps, then I'd be like, okay, now we're looking at more of a power setup. This is a 1 rep deal. That's the same thing as saying, like, okay, what has a greater power output? You know, deadlifting 800 pounds, or deadlifting, you know, whatever, 200 pounds, you know, 10 times. Like, that's
equation for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that, like, I don't see... Yes, you can get yourself to go to that, but I don't think that, like, it's like, oh, well, power and strength and this and that. And then even like flexibility, to me, I don't see this as a flexibility move for an athlete. Nah.
I think all right.
No. I mean, if you were talking like masters, then okay, maybe flexibility if it was overhead squat. All right.
I mean, you still got to have the flexibility to get in a good rack position and a good squat.
Like,
ankles are trashed. You can't have a good front squat. You're going to tip over.
I don't think that we're testing flexibility at the CrossFit Games by doing a front squat.
That's the test. I'm saying that's a skill that is needed to be good at the test. You cannot tell me being more flexible is a skill needed to have a better front squat.
Oh, I'm not going to say that I won't do that. I'm saying that, like, I'm
not saying we're testing flexibility. That's
okay. If we're going to check all the boxes, it will be very easy for any skills test.
Yes.
Like, I'm waiting for you to do the handstand hold where you're like, oh, we've got boom, 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 boom. Look at that. There's 8 of the 10 skills all done on the handstand hold, which I also want to put the softball throw in there, and we can check off all the boxes on that one as well.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, but as long as there's a lot less boxes. I'm just going through the skills needed to be good at this.
I hear you. So continue.
To be good
before I interrupt you.
You're not interrupting me.
Okay.
We're having a conversation. To be good at a front squat, you need to have good flexibility, strength. You need to be it has power.
Agree.
And speed. You can't do it slow. I'm not saying these are a test of the skills. These are the skills needed for the test. I'm going the other direction. Does that make sense?
Do you need to have speed for that to happen?
Yes. I am very confused about the way you're analyzing this right now. It's literally in the equation.
Go ahead. I know. Well, no. It's...
Force is mass times acceleration.
Acceleration doesn't equal speed. You could have a slow front squat and still do 490 pounds.
You need to accelerate to get to that speed. It's the only way it happens. You can't have one without the other.
Continue.
All right.
Semantic pool. Welcome.
I feel like it's pretty straightforward.
Go ahead. Continue.
Great. This is great. I'm so glad we did this. Just going off the rails at the end of this. I hope you guys listened to the first part. It's a good thing we did this at the end. Okay. Row. I said cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina. I also added like speed and power to be good.
You're not going to put strength in there?
And strength. Sorry. Yes. Like
if you have bad flexibility, you can't get into the good pulling position.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be a smartass about it, I'm going to stop this podcast right now, Bill. But you're correct.
I'm just stepping in the other pool. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
But the major skills you need to have a successful 1,000, I think those top 6, cardio, stamina, flexibility. Oh, not flexibility. Well, we go through flexibility in there. Strength, speed, power. Like those all have to be in there.
I agree.
Like if you want to have a good one. And then, so when they break these skills up, they're like skills you can train,
right,
skills you can practice, and then one that has both. And the skills you can train are cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, flexibility, and strength. You can train those to get better at them.
Mm-hmm.
Speed and power has a combination of the two, right? The more you train other ones, you develop that. And then the practice side is more what you consider like a real niche-y skill. Balance, coordination, agility, and accuracy. That just takes repetitions. Not necessarily like, if I back squat more, I'm going to get more balance. Like that's not, you just have to practice balancing. And
right.
so I feel like the front squat had the meat in the middle, that major, I mean, you don't think speed, but speed and power. That's basically the two ones that you hate the most.
Actually, yeah, those are the ones I like the most. I mean, those are my out of all of them. Those are the exciting parts, of the test. Yeah.
So I feel like the front squat hits the middle. The row for sure hits the top 4. And then the handstand hits your bottom 4, where it's the agility, coordination, balance, and accuracy.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't disagree with saying that you basically found a single modality to set into each one of those. And again, like I'm not saying that the stuff isn't legit and it doesn't deserve to be there. I think that that's an interesting way to put it together. Is it, you have one that fits into the top part, you have one that fits into the middle, you have one that fits in the bottom, and that's cool. I
didn't even think about it.
I didn't think about that either.
I was just writing on a sticky note while we were talking.
If that was part of the process, then wow, like Dave really, like that dude is CrossFit creative for sure, because that's pretty impressive.
It's kind of neat when I didn't even think about it until
right,
but it is neat how those 3 hit those.
Can definitely do that.
Framings of those 10.
Yeah, that's cool.
Skills. So
that's cool. No, I agree. That's pretty badass. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That was neat.
Boy, that was neat.
All right. Well, hey,
I need to go bub up my second cup of coffee is what I need to do.
I know you got some stuff to do. I'm gonna get on the rest of my day. And are you double bubbing?
I always double bub.
Have you double scooped yet? The MCT?
No. One in one cup, the next in the other cup.
One in one.
Yeah.
I'll still die. I'm like, I've got a mega cup.
You got your bucket. You got your bucket of bubs is what you got.
Oh man, hey, that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We again, this is questions that arose either from our own podcast talk, that's where the point system came in, and from you guys as well as things to look at. And we wanted to just provide a platform for conversation. We're not providing a platform of this is how it should have been done or create anything like that. So we wanted to create the discussion so you guys can continue it. Hopefully it's as civil as mine and Bill's are. It's always good when you talk in person. You guys getting a war of words on the Instagram posts. But again, fun little rabbit hole to go down.
Totally.
I went down a couple. But yeah, that was cool.
Right on, you guys. Well, and seriously, sometimes it's fun to play the what if game. Understanding that it just means what if.
Game.
That's all it means. It's a game. It's just like let's pretend. Let's just see what it could be.
Let's pretend if the sky was green. And
what will it do? It'll be awesome. And this and that. It's all fun. It's all fun.
I should be green and the water pink. Although that does sound kind of cool.
Does sound kind of cool. I know the water gets pink in Chicago, or green in Chicago.
Oh yeah, for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
they did that in San Antonio as well. They had that river walk.
Oh, they make it green?
Yeah.
Really?
They have all those barges everywhere.
Ah, crazy.
They just drag food coloring bags for like a week, and it just gets green. It's already pretty green though. It's not the greenest water in the world. The very confined.
It's just a pretty green now, is what it is.
Motor and gas going up and down.
Oh man.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And again, if you want to continue the conversation in the comments, have at it. If you have more questions or ideas for us for our fan service episodes, that is what they are for. We are here to connect with the community through the wonderful sound waves of podcast radio. If you guys want to follow us on Instagram, go to getwith_the programming. If you want to support us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/getwiththeprogramming. Thank you for our patrons that are following us already. We are getting closer and closer to that 50 patron mark where we can start giving more back to those that support us. And last but not least, Bill, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. Thank you so much.
Have a good day, guys.